All right, welcome to this tutorial. We're going to talk about dimensioning, and we're going to start with dimensioning our first sketch that we did, sketch 01. So if you'll pull that out and have it in front of you, you also need a ruler, your pencil, and your linking cubes, okay? So that we can do some measuring and adding dimensions or measurements to our drawing. This is kind of the final step of your technical drawing, where you're going to be adding the measurements to your drawing so that if somebody was looking at it, they'd know exactly what the shape looked like or the object looked like and how big that object was. Because drawings aren't always exactly the same size as the object itself. They're in proportion, but they're sometimes much bigger than the actual object if the object's very small, or much smaller if the object's very big. In our case, it's pretty close to about the same. So let's not get confused with measuring the drawing and measuring the object. We want to be measuring the actual object itself for our dimensions. Okay? So before I get started with putting the dimensions on, I kind of want to look at my multi-view drawing and see where is it best going to go. Where are the dimensions best going to go? And in looking at my sketch 01 here, I can tell that one of the things that I need to think about is where is the best contour? Where's the best contour that I can show the dimensions or the measurements the best? And there's several places here where I can do that. One is right here, okay? And I could dimension up here for this part of the shape. But then I have to go back to my dimensioning notes and guidelines and go, well, that's probably not the best place to do it because then that's outside or not between my objects. And I do have this contour of the shape over here that would work just as well, and it is between the two shapes, and so the top and the front view. Also, this contour works well for the height dimension I'm going to be doing as well. And I have a contour here, or I can see the contour of the shape here, but I can also see the contour of the shape here. So really, either place. And sometimes it works out that way where you have multiple places where you can dimension an object and it works just as well. Okay, so I know I want to dimension the width here of the top of this shape and also the total width of the object itself. And then I want to dimension this part or this area here, but that is also the same as this area here. So you'll see that in a second. But let's start with this one, and I'm going to dimension on our front view here. So the first thing I'm going to do is we need to do some measuring. So I'm going to measure, let's do this top part right here. And so that's this part of my object right here, and I'm putting up the ruler. And don't forget to use centimeters, and it looks like it's right at 2 centimeters. Okay, so I'm going to go and do my extension lines right here, being careful not to touch the object, and right here. Okay, I also know I'm going to use this extension line to do the total width, so I need to leave a little space above that. I always want to do the longer or the wider dimensions above the smaller ones. But since we're starting with this one, I'm going to add in my guidelines, or my dimension lines, excuse me. Okay, leaving a little space in between and doing a little arrow on the end. Okay, and then that was 2.0 centimeters. So now I want to do 0.0 because we really are dimensioning to millimeter. So we want to get that level of detail in there. Okay. So now I have that one done, and I want to do now the total width here. Okay. So I need to add another extension line right in there. I'm not touching the object here. And then another guideline. Adding arrows on the end. And it doesn't have to be exactly in the middle, but it needs to be, you just eyeball it. It needs to be close. So, let's measure it. So here we go, centimeters, and I'm going to measure this section right here. So I need to measure that section right there. So I'm always lining up my 0 with the edge of my object, and then that looks like that's right at 4 centimeters. So 4.0 cm. Okay, and I do want to include my units there, so if somebody looks at that, they know that it's centimeters and not inches or something else. Okay, so there we've dimensioned both the top part here and the total width. Now I also need to do the height of the object, of the total height and the height of this piece as well. So every piece that you can dimension in your object needs to be dimensioned. And let's do the smaller one first. Okay, so we're going to do right in here. And that, if I'm looking at my object, is right there. So I need to make sure I'm looking at the right thing. Now these are cubes, and so each side should be the same, and I'm just confirming that it is 2 centimeters. Okay, so I'm going to put in my 2.0 cm, and sometimes that works a little better to write in the number first, then you know how much of a gap to leave in between your dimension lines. And there we go. Put him in. You can turn the dimension that way, or you can turn your paper and have the dimension go in line with the with your dimension lines. Okay. Now I need to do the total height, so I need to extend that line and add myself another extension line here. Okay. So let's measure. That is, now we're looking at the height from there to there. So we're going to line up on the 0, and that should be right at 6 centimeters, and that's what it looks like. Okay. So I'm going to put 6.0 centimeters right in there. And notice I'm still using my ruler for all the lines I'm drawing to make sure they are straight. So now we have our dimensions for the total height. Now I don't have to do the height over here because that's exactly the same height as this, as well as this piece right here, that's exactly the same height as that. Now I'm almost done. I just have one more area to dimension, and I have 2 places I can do it. So I can do the width here, or if you want to call it the height, or this area here, and it really is the same area, and let me show you what I mean. So if we're looking at the top, okay, it's this width from here to here is what we're talking about, and when we go to the side, it's that same width there. So when you rotate it from the top here, there we go, down to the side, we're talking about that same width. Okay, so I can do it in either place because this is between the isometric and the right side view, and this is also between the top and the isometric view, so it is still inside the drawings. So I'm going to do it right on this side here. So let's do our shorter area first. Okay. Now that is this, and just to confirm that it is 2 centimeters there, okay. 2.0 cm, and sometimes our dimension lines are very short. Little arrows, okay, and then I'm going to extend that a little bit because that's also going to be the extension line for the overall width, and give myself another line here. As always, you can be, and I almost touched that, so I'm going to give it a little bit of a erase there. As always, you can be pausing and doing this right along with me and then coming back to the video. So let's measure it just to make sure. So right here, and so I'm measuring this width right in there, and I can actually measure it on the bottom because it's kind of hard to eyeball it when I have to look down through the object. So I'm just going to measure it on the bottom, which is the same distance, and that is 4. Okay, 4.0 centimeters. And finish up my dimension lines here. Okay. And I believe that is it. This drawing for this object is fully drawn out, multi-view, isometric, with dimensions, showing somebody that was looking at it exactly how large this cube was, or this object was, and you are done. So, you know, as I said, you know, if you need to rewind it, go back and forth to complete your dimension of your sketch 01, and then you're going to go on and dimension the rest of your sketches 02 through 06. Okay? All right, thank you.